All right, so I figured we may want to go over one or two of these factoring by grouping problems that we saw last night on the homework. So the first one I'm looking at, this was one of your homework problems from last night where you had to factor. So I'm just going to quickly refresh, how do we factor by grouping? So as a reminder, we start by taking the first term and the last term. We multiply the coefficients together. Okay, so we're doing A times C. So 3 times negative 12 is negative 36. The next thing I do is I look for two numbers that multiply to give me negative 36, but that add to give me whatever my B value is, which in this case, B is negative 5. So I think about numbers that multiply to negative 36, but add to negative 5. And the two numbers that I think of are negative 9 and positive 4. So when I start rewriting, I keep my first term exactly as it was. I keep my last term exactly as it was, but instead of calling my middle term negative 5x, I'm going to use these two numbers that I just found. So negative 9x and positive 4x. The whole reason why I found these two numbers is now I can group my first two terms, I can group my last two terms, and I can start factoring between them. So I look at this first set and I see, what does this first set have in common that I could factor out? Well, the greatest common factor is a 3x. All that's left over is an x minus 3. Plus, I go look at my second group. Well, my second group, the thing that they have in common is a 4. When I look at what's left, I have an x minus 3. At this step in factoring by grouping, each piece should have the same common factor. That same common factor is x minus 3. So I factor out an x minus 3. When I look at what's left, I have a 3x plus 4. So now I have factored it. All right, I'll do one more. So this is another problem on your homework. It was 2x squared plus 7x minus 15. So same thing as the last one. I'm going to have to factor by grouping because when I look at this, there are no greatest common factors between all three of my terms. So I start by multiplying A and C together, and I get A times C is negative 30. So the next thing I do is I look for two numbers that multiply to negative 30. But I want to add these same two numbers to give me my B value, which was 7. So I think about all the factors that I can multiply to negative 30 and add to 7, and the two that I think of are negative, or let's say positive 10 and negative 3. I chose to make 10 positive because when I add them, I get positive 7. So when I'm rewriting, I keep my first term the same, I keep my last term the same, and I rewrite my middle term using these two numbers that I found. So positive 10x and negative 3x. I'm ready to go start grouping, so I group my first two. When you're grouping the second two, if you see that this second x has a negative in front, include the negative in your group and put a plus in the middle. Now I look at my first group and I see what they both have in common. Well, they both have a 2x, and all that's left is an x plus 5. From my second group, well, these both have a negative 3, and I get left an x plus 5. So now, between my two groups, I see a common factor of x plus 5. When I look at what's left, I have a 2x minus 3. And now I have factored by grouping. So hopefully that helps clarify some things that we talked about yesterday.